Hey, good morning, Facebook. My name is Stephanie Haines, and I'm a reporter for TMJ4. You are seeing me here in the basement of the Kenosha County Courthouse in a side room from the media room. And we were in court for a little bit today because the jury came back to begin their deliberations. All 18 of them came in the room, and they got their names or their jury numbers put in a tumbler, which is just like, sort of like a Powerball looking tumbler. And Kyle Rittenhouse, the defendant, picked out 6 of those names or jury numbers of the tumbler. And those 6 were designated as alternates. It was 3 men and 3 women. They have to stay in the courthouse while the jury of 12 deliberates, but they have to the alternates stay in a separate room because just in case there's something happens where they have to replace a juror, they just don't want them having to leave. They can't talk about the case. They can watch TV, read a book, whatever, but they kind of just have to sit there. So that was shortly before 9:30. The jury of 12 went into deliberation. So there's 7 women, 7 white women, 5 men, and 4 men appear white, and 1 could be a person of color. So that is the jury right now. They have 5 counts to consider. And if they have a question or they want to see something again, they have to come back into court. And so sometimes we'll get, the notification like, oh, the jury has a question, the jury's getting called back in, or something happens where they want to see something again, they will get called back into the courtroom, and everybody comes back in, including the attorneys, the defendant, his attorneys, everybody can come and see, what the jury is asking. Now we wait. When do we get to hear the verdict? Kalisa Rivera asks when the jury has it. So they've been in there in deliberations for about an hour now. We will get a notification from the court clerk saying the jury has a verdict or something. And so then we'll all quickly go into the courtroom. It'll probably happen pretty fast. They'll bring the jury in, and the jury will read, we the jury find the defendant, blah, 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 for each of the 5 counts. We don't know when this is going to be. We don't know how long they're going to deliberate. It could be a few hours. It could be a few days. We don't know if they're going to stay late tonight, if that's necessary. That is all up to them. It's sort of just whatever happens, whatever is going on in the room, we're not going to know until they come back. There is also a possibility the jury, there's a hung jury on one of the counts. That means they just simply cannot decide. And I have been on a couple of cases where there have been a hung jury, and the judge will tell them to go back at least maybe a couple times, at least once, maybe a couple times. Say, go back, talk amongst yourselves again, see if you could reach a unanimous decision. Try your hardest. The jury has been sitting here now for more than 2 weeks. It could be a couple more days, or it could be a couple more hours. We're not sure. We're told that the attorneys were told that they have to be within 10 minutes of the courthouse. Can the judge call a mistrial? Yes. He can, if the jury is a hung jury on every count or certain counts. That would be one of the results. As far as the mistrial mistrial motion from the defense about the mistrial with prejudice, which means this case cannot be tried again. He hasn't made a ruling on that. Right now, the jury's in deliberation. So far, he hasn't ruled. But let me get back to you. Let me talk to Pat Cafferty, our legal analyst, on this, just to see if that is still in the realm of possibilities. Okay, so I have never been on a jury before, so I actually don't really know what goes on in the room. I don't know if, you take an initial vote and see where everybody's at, or if you just kind of go down, going down the charging sheet. The jury instructions, the judge said, were 36 pages long. And he read them yesterday. It took a little while to read them. He did instruct them that if you read the charged defense, and you are unanimous in a verdict, meaning you unanimously find the defendant guilty on the charged offense, or you find the defendant is privileged under self-defense for this charged offense, you stop right there and go on to the next charge to consider. Only 2 of the charges have lesser includeds. So lesser includeds means, like, if not first degree, it's second degree or another charge altogether. So the Anthony Huber is charged as first degree intentional homicide. That is the biggest charge in the state of Wisconsin. That charge has lesser includeds for second degree intentional homicide and first degree reckless homicide. And then the charge for Gage Grosskreutz is attempted first degree homicide, intentional homicide. That includes second degree and first degree reckless endangerment. So the jury can only consider those if they are not unanimous on the charged offense, which is the one that's listed on CCAP. Remember, the gun charge has been dropped. The curfew charge citation has been dropped. So that's what they're going to be doing. Yesterday was a really long day. They listened to hours and hours of closing arguments. They each got 2.5 hours each side, but there was a pretty long rebuttal case that the jury had to be sent back out and come back in for. So they, it was around 6 o'clock, they decided, okay, you're going home for the night. You're going to come back in the morning and start the deliberations fresh when everybody is not tired, had a good night's sleep. So that's where we're at now, at least outside what are the additional security procedures in place currently? Good question. There are plenty of sheriff's deputies in and around the courthouse. It's been that way for 2 weeks. There were far more sheriff's deputies when it was jury selection, just because it's just the sheer volume of people. They had a big jury pool, at least 150 people to get through. There are some demonstrators outside the courthouse on the steps here. I can actually hear them shouting. I don't know how many, but in the last night it probably was a couple dozen. Today it seems maybe a little less than that. It is cold outside, and then there's plenty of media around. But there are sheriff's deputies standing around at the security in the courthouse. When you walk into the Kenosha County Courthouse at all times, anytime, you have to go through security. It's a metal detector, and you have to put your bags through a screening, sort of like what you would see at an airport or even Milwaukee County Courthouse. So there's several deputies there. They're walking around the courthouse, just checking, and then there's several of them stationed in the courtroom every day, probably at least 4. And they're walking around just making, taking a good look at people, just making sure that, everybody, maybe they don't have their phones out, or they're just keeping a close eye. There's about 4 deputies stationed outside the doors of the courtroom as well. We have gotten indication from one of the defense attorneys that once the verdict is read, everybody's going to get ushered out pretty fast, just for security purposes. 10th Street 56th Street in front of the courthouse has been closed to regular traffic, but plenty of people have driven past it already. So is Kyle on bail or in custody during this? He has been out on bail for close to a year now. He had a $2 million bail set. And if you recall, when he had different attorneys, his first attorneys fundraised for that bail. And when they raised the $2 million, they posted it, and Kyle went home or wherever he's staying. So he has been out this whole time. He said on the witness stand he lives in Walworth County. So I imagine at the end of every day of the trial, he's spoken with his attorneys and then gone home with his family and then reported back to the courthouse every morning. We have seen him walking in with his attorneys and leaving with his attorneys on certain days and certain mornings. So, we all know we're all in the same courthouse together. But yeah, that was a big part that we forgot, that a lot of people I think have forgotten is this is just that he's not a in custody defendant. He has made bail, and he has been out. I believe it was since November 2020. More questions, keep them coming. Do they expect the verdict today? Okay. The short answer is we don't know. It could come down at any time. There's people, Kenosha County, the sheriff's deputies, the courthouse, the attorneys, the judge. Everybody is prepared for it to happen at any point. But we just can't. None of us know for sure. We can kind of only guess when that's going to be. It just, it sort of depends. I've been in other trials in Tennessee where it's taken days. And then I've been in other trials here in Wisconsin where it's taken a few hours. So it just kind of depends. I do know that this jury has been doing this for many weeks, 2 weeks now. Can you explain the raffle process for jurors? Yes. Okay. So this is also very interesting, Simone, because I had never seen this before in Kenosha. They have this, I don't play the lottery, but I would imagine it's like a lottery tumbler, and they have the jurors' numbers listed on scraps of paper, and then they spin it, and Kyle Rittenhouse, the defendant, reaches in and picks out 6 papers, and those are the 6 chosen alternates. And so those 6 people are the alternates. They go into another room into the courthouse. They can watch a movie. They can read a book. They can't talk about the case. They can talk amongst each other. They just have to sit there on standby. But yeah, there's some pictures out there. You have Kyle Rittenhouse reaching in and pulling out the sheets of paper. I didn't know that that's a Kenosha County courthouse thing to do for selecting alternates. So then the 12 that remained in the tumbler are the 12 jurors. So 7 women, 5 men. So I thought that was really interesting to see that the defendant actually literally has a hand in picking who's going to be on the jury of 12. I have not, let's just go back. Remember, they had 20 jurors seated, just for COVID, just for, just in case purposes. One was dismissed for making a joke about Jacob Blake. A second one was, she was dismissed. She told the judge she's pregnant and not feeling well. So now it was down to 18, and now it's down to 12. 12 in the room. Okay. Well, if you all have more questions, tweet at me or comment on the Facebook page, and we'll be sitting here waiting to see if the jury comes back or if they have questions or if there are any other updates in this case today. We don't know how long we will be waiting, but we will be here. So thanks so much, guys.